A very good morning, my dear students. Myself Arul Murugan. Welcome to my digital class. Chapter name Input, Output and Memory Devices. Lecture video part 12. Dear students, in a previous class lecture video, we discussed clearly about what is ROM, different types of ROM. In today's lecture video, we are going to discuss about RAM, different types of RAM, difference between RAM and ROM. We will discuss one by one. First, RAM. What is the expansion of RAM? Random access memory. RAM is also called as the main memory of a computer. So, what is RAM? RAM is also called main memory of a computer. This is really the main store and is a place where the program gets stored temporarily. Actually, this is the main storage of a computer. Here, the programs get stored temporarily. The program will not store permanently, the program will store temporarily. When the CPU runs a program, it fetches the program instructions from the RAM and carries them out. So, dear students, when CPU runs a program, assume that this is the RAM, this is the RAM and this is the CPU. The CPU is indicated here processor, the CPU is indicated here processor. So, when the processor wants to execute a program, the execution instruction will get from the RAM only. So, the instruction will fetch from the RAM only. Understand? Right. So, if the CPU needs to store the result of a calculation, assume that there is a process is called process calculation. There is a calculation process. Assume that we want to calculate 2 plus 3. So, we want to add 2 plus 3. So, we will get the result 5. Where we have to store the result? We need to store result in RAM only. So, the result of calculation will store RAM. When we switch off the computer, whatever is stored in RAM, it get erased. So, when you switch off the computer, whatever you stored in the RAM, it gets erased. So, it is a volatile form of memory. What is volatile? Which means temporary memory. Temporary memory. My dear students, RAM is the expansion of random access memory. It is also called main memory of a computer. It is really the main store, is the place where the program gets stored temporarily. When CPU runs a program, it fetches the program instructions from the RAM. If the CPU needs to store the result of a calculation, it can store in the RAM only. When you switch off the computer, the data or content of the RAM will erased. It is a volatile memory. So, this is the RAM. We know that there are 3 types of RAM. So, how many types? There are 3 types: EDO RAM, SRAM and DDR. Dear students, between SRAM and DDR RAM, there is another type which is called SDRAM, which is static and dynamic RAM. Static and dynamic RAM. So, after static and dynamic RAM, nowadays we are using DDR RAM only. Nowadays we are using DDR RAM only. So, in general, there are 3 types: EDO, SRAM and DDR. But generally, the RAM will divide it into 2 types: static RAM and dynamic RAM. So, if they ask in example, in examination and all, you have to write these 3 types only. Understand? So, how many types? There are 3 types: EDO RAM, SRAM, DDR RAM. We will see one by one. First, EDO RAM. So, what is the expansion of EDO RAM? Extended data output RAM. Extended data output RAM. See, it improves the time to read from memory on faster microprocessor such as Intel Pentium. Dear students, the faster microprocessor, not nowadays, in earlier years, this type of RAM nowadays we are not using. These types of RAMs and all we are using in older years only. Clear? In earlier years we used to use this EDO RAM. That time it was faster microprocessor. Clear? Nowadays it is not faster compared with the modern RAM. So, EDO RAM initially optimized with 66 megahertz. So, the average speed is initially optimized with 66 megahertz. Next, SRAM. So SRAM stands for Static Random Access Memory, which means static RAM. So it is a type of semiconductor memory that uses bistable latching circuitry to store each bit. And dear students, to store the data in SRAM, they are using semiconductor memory that uses bistable latching circuitry to store each bit. Whereas in dynamic RAM, so in SDRAM, which means DRAM, dynamic RAM, which stores a bit, a cell consists of capacitors and transistor. So you should understand the difference between static RAM and dynamic RAM. In static RAM, they were used semiconductor to store the data. In dynamic RAM, they used capacitors and transistor to store the data. SRAM does not have periodically refreshed. Dear students, in nowadays we are not doing manually refresh, pressing F5 with the help of mouse, right click refresh. But in earlier years and all, we have to do manually, because this SRAM will not refresh periodically automatically. Understand? So automatically it will not refresh, so manually we have to do. But nowadays we are not doing this refresh because the advanced RAM, so what we are using DDR RAM, it will do automatically refresh periodically. So we no need to do refresh manually, but in earlier days we used to do refresh manually. Understand? Next, DDR RAM, which stands for double data rate random access memory, or we can say double data rate synchronous dynamic random access memory. So it is a type of very fast computer memory. It is based on same architecture as SDRAM. Understand? So static and dynamic RAM. So same architecture they are using in the DDR RAM only, but it uses the clock signal differently to transfer twice the data in the same amount of time. Assume that in SDRAM, in 1 second 10 MB we are transferring. So it is simple calculation. For example I am giving. So in 1 second, if we can transmit 10 MB in SDRAM, we can transmit 20 MB in DDR RAM. So it is twice as the same amount of time. Understand? So these are all the different types of RAMs. So this is EDO RAM. Nowadays we are not using extended data output. This is SRAM, static RAM. This also nowadays we are not using. And SDRAM, static and dynamic RAM. In DDR there are different versions, DDR1, DDR2, DDR3, like that. So nowadays we are using this DDR RAM only. Understand? Next, difference between RAM and ROM. The first difference is, we know that the expansion, RAM expansion random access memory, ROM expansion read only memory. Second difference, which type of data we are storing in the RAM and which type of data we are storing in the ROM. First, RAM allows computer to read data quickly to run applications. So we are storing instructions to run applications. Whereas here in ROM stores program required to initially boot the computer. So in ROM we are used to store the instruction to boot the computer. And in RAM it allows read and write. Whereas in ROM we can only read the data. Understand? Next, in RAM it is a volatile memory. So what is meant by volatile? Whenever you turn off the computer, the content of the RAM will erased. And ROM is non-volatile memory, which means if you turn off the computer also, the content of the memory will not erase in the ROM. In RAM we know that in general we divided into two types, static RAM and dynamic RAM. In ROM we can divide it into PROM, EPROM and EEPROM. Dear students, I am going to conclude this video by giving summary. First we should know expansion of RAM, random access memory. It is also called main memory of a computer. This is really the main store and is the place where the program gets stored temporarily. When the CPU runs a program, it fetches the program instructions from the RAM and carries them out. If the CPU needs to store the result of a calculation, it can store in the RAM only. When you switch off the computer, whatever you store in the RAM gets erased. It is a volatile memory. There are three types of RAM: EDORAM, SRAM and DDRAM. EDORAM expansion is extended data output. It improves the time to read from memory on faster microprocessor such as Intel Pentium. Initially it was optimized with 66 MHz. SRAM expansion of static random access memory. It is a type of semiconductor memory that uses bistable latching circuitry to store each bit. So in SRAM we are used to store semiconductor memory to store the data. Understand? In dynamic RAM we used to store capacitors and transistor. Understand? Next, DDRAM. In DDRAM expansion double data rate, and it is very faster computer memory. And these are all the different types and difference between RAM and ROM. Dear students, kindly watch this video one more time. Still, if you have any doubt, feel free to message me or call me. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. We will see next class with some other topic.